Is it better to rent or is it better to buy a home? This is an old age question. And a question related to that is home an asset or is it a liability? My view is that if it is a good home in a good area, your home is always an asset. Because as long as you can afford to make regular payments, that home is likely to sell at a higher price than what you bought it for. Because usually for a good home in a good area, the value always goes up. In fact, a few years ago, a friend of mine bought a home and then sold the home back 1 year later at a price of $140,000 more. And after, if you take those agent commissions, he made net $100,000 profit. So what it means is that for staying in that home for 1 year, he was paid $100,000. Now in his case, he was an American citizen, but if you have immigration related issues, it might be better to just rent. But if you really want to buy a home, well, you need to see how well settled you are in the city where you are living right now. So with that, let us compare the differences in expenses between living in an apartment versus living in a home. If you think you have a stable job, if you have a good salary and you are stable in that area, then you might consider buying a home there. So let me acknowledge right up front, owning a home is actually very expensive. But owning a home also gives you a lot of satisfaction and actually some happiness, actually a lot of happiness. In my case, for example, I love that I have a large kitchen. I love my stove. I love my countertops, everything, the large storage space in my kitchen. Then I also love that I have a very nice room dedicated for office, which is my office room, which overlooks the street. So I get a lot of natural light. I can actually focus and be productive. And if somebody is watching TV in the living room, I can actually close my doors and still focus on my work. I think it is more difficult to do that in an apartment. And more so, I have a backyard in my home where I have a lawn, I have a fruit tree, I grow my vegetables sometimes. I do all those things which I might not be able to do living in an apartment. But as I said, all this comes at a heavy price. And I have to admit my expenses have shot up big time. Now the data I'm presenting here is comparison between living in an apartment versus living in a home. My apartment data is based on the data of 24 months, which is 2 years. And my home expenses data is based on data from 30 months, which is about 2.5 years of living in this home. So I have sufficiently large enough sample from both sides to actually truthfully compare how living in a home is more or less expensive as compared to living in an apartment. So let me actually do computation right in front of you, okay? So I have my computer here. Now let us start comparing the differences in expenses of living in a home versus an apartment. So the first bill we will compare is the water bill. So let me just write water here. When I used to live in an apartment, my water bill used to be between $40 to $50 with an average of $45. So let me just write the range here, and the average price was $45 a month. Now, how does that compare with a home? Well, living in a home, my water bill has gone up significantly. Living in a home, my lowest water bill has been about $72 and my highest water bill has been $210. So the range is 70 to 210. Okay. Now, what is the average water bill living in a home? I looked at the average of 30 months and it is about $120 per month of water bill that I get living in a home. So as you can see, my water bill is between 2 to 3 times more living in a home as compared to an apartment. Why is that? See, in my home, it's not just the water usage inside the home. I also have a backyard, front yard and a side yard. And all these 3 places need water for the lawns, for the grass to grow. You have to maintain that, okay, for which it takes water and water bill goes up, especially between the months of April and October, November. I have to run sprinklers a few times every single week, which take quite some water. The next expense I have is the gas bill. So let me just write it down here. Okay, so my gas bill has become much higher as compared to an apartment, because in the apartment, my gas bill was 0. Whereas in my home, my gas bill is quite high. Why is that? Because here, the cooking is gas based because I have a stove here. Then my heating of water, the hot water that I get in all the taps inside my home is also gas based. And the third thing is the heating AC. When I turn the AC up to heat my home, it uses gas. And when I try to cool my home, it uses electricity. So gas is used for 3 things. And on an average, my apartment range was actually $0. and my monthly gas expense was also $0. However, my monthly range living in a home is $24 to $500. In January 2024, I was using the heating system inside my home for the whole month, and my gas bills shot up. So it was quite expensive actually. And my average gas bill living in a home is $140 a month. So now if you compare living in a home, just for gas alone, I pay $140 a month more on an average. So the third bill that we have for comparison is the electricity bill. So let me just write it down. Electricity. Okay. In my apartment, the range was anywhere between $50 all the way to $400. Okay. And my average cost of electricity bill per month in an apartment was around $200. Okay. Because everything that was used in my apartment was electricity based. However, what is the case with my home? So living in a home, my electricity bills have been between the range of $55 to $345 with an average of $145 a month. How did that happen? Well, the thing is that electricity is being used in this home only for cooling and appliance use. It is not being used for cooking or heating and such things. Therefore, my electricity bill, even though it is a larger home, is lower than an apartment. So the next expense to compare between home and an apartment is the homeowner association fee. When I lived in an apartment, my HOA fee was $0, whereas living in this home, I pay $60 a month. So let us put this range, which is 0, home range, there is no range. So the same numbers repeat here. It is $60 for homeowner association versus $0 in an apartment. So I pay $60 more just because I live in a home. So now comes the most important expense, which is monthly expense for living in an apartment versus home, which is regular payments for rent versus mortgage. So let me just write it down here. Mortgage or rent. So my apartment where I lived for 2 years, I paid around $1,600 a month, but the same apartment now costs $1,900. So if we have to compare with today's prices, the range is not significant here. So my apartment rent would be $1,900 for the same apartment. As I said, when I lived there, it was $1,600, but they keep increasing the rent over time, right? Now, my monthly mortgage expense of principal plus interest living in a home is $2,200. Okay, so as you can clearly see, I pay at least $300 more. Now, keep in mind that this is my regular payment, and this payment remains the same for the entire time I'm making payments. This does not go up. Other costs may go up, but my monthly payments for principal and interest stay the same. And not just that, every month when I make a payment, more gets paid towards principal as compared to all the previous months, and my interest keeps coming down. So every payment that I make is gaining me some equity in my home. However, if you are living in an apartment, every payment that you make is just gone. And as the trend goes, I can almost guarantee that within 3 to 5 years, these basic payments of mortgage versus rent will start to cost more. And not just that, it is quite likely that 15 to 20 years down the line, my rent cost would have gone up by even twice as much. Right now, if somebody is paying $1,900 to live in that apartment, they'll be paying $3,000, $4,000 within 10 years or so. But we are not going there. Let us compare the expenses as they stand today. And before I forget, it is important to make a point that my interest rate was less than 3% when I bought my home. Had I bought the same home at the same price with current interest rates, let's say they are about 6 to 7% right now, I would be paying $3,800 a month instead of $2,200 a month. So even in 25 years, my monthly payments are locked in at $2,200 a month. And that, I think, is a big benefit of buying a home. But that said, as is the case with everything else, there is a catch here. This is not all the payments that I make. I also need to pay for insurance, and I also need to pay property tax. And both these can cost quite a bit. Now let us compare home insurance versus apartment insurance. Okay, so when it comes to insurance, I used to pay around $20 a month for insuring my apartment versus I pay around $250 a month for my home. Now this 250 can go up, and I would expect that this will keep on going up as the home values keep going up. But at the moment it is $250. My apartment was just $20. The next thing we have to compare is property taxes. Okay. In my apartment, I used to pay zero property tax. So I'll keep zero here. Here I pay around $1,100 a month. Okay. So that is how much property tax I have to pay. So this is quite a big addition to my expenses living in a home like this. So now the expenses have not yet stopped. Living in a home can cost you even more, because when you are living in a home, you have to pay for pesticides, right? For pest control. And pest control cost living in my home is around, let me just mention, it's around $50 a month. Whereas living in an apartment, it was $0 because the apartment complex used to take care of it. So the ninth expense we have is for maintenance. Okay, in my apartment, if pipe broke down or something else went wrong, the apartment complex used to take care of it. So the expense there was zero. Whereas something or the other breaks down living in a home. So on an average, let us give a rough price of $100 a month for you to maintain your home. But the expenses have yet not stopped. Okay, the 10th expense is maintaining the yard. Okay, in my apartment, I used to pay again $0 for yard maintenance. However, living in a home like this can cost you anywhere around $160 a month, and $160 a month for an average of at least 8 months. To that add some more expenses, because sometimes you have red ants here for which you need to spray some chemicals there. So everything added together, it costs around $1,500 a year for yard maintenance alone. And roughly on a monthly basis, that costs around $125 a month. So I'll put $125 a month. So now if you think we are done with all our expenses, guess what? There is still more. Okay. Now what happens is that when you have such a large home, it also needs to be cleaned. In an apartment, okay, let us look at cleaning expenses. So in an apartment, I used to clean the apartment myself because it was small enough and it would be good workout every week or every 2 weeks or so. So it used to cost me $0. However, when you have such a large home, cleaning the entire home is quite a task. Okay, and if you are living a busy life, in my case, I have to work on my research. I do not have that much patience and energy to clean my entire home. So what I do is that I hire professional cleaners every month, and professional cleaning costs me around $200 a month. Okay, it is actually more than that sometimes. Sometimes I hire them to do some deep cleaning, so they spend more time, a few hours extra, and that can cost around $350. But on an average, roughly it can cost about $200 a month just for cleaning. Now if you have a lot of people living in your home and it keeps getting messy all the time, then you might have to get your home cleaned maybe twice a month. But if you are thinking that once a month, is that enough? Actually it is. The thing is that there is no dust that comes from outside. This is not India, so it doesn't get dirty that much. But if it is beyond 1 month, then it can be quite messy. So overall, these are the expenses, and let us add these expenses up, and I would expect that living in a home would cost about twice as much as living in an apartment. So let's take a look. Sum of this whole thing is $44.90, whereas living in an apartment is $21.65. So it is actually a bit more than double. But let us round it up for a clear understanding. So it is about $2,200, and this is about $4,500 a month. So the difference between living in an apartment versus living in a home in Dallas-Fort Worth area, Texas area, is roughly $2,300 a month, so which translates to around $28,000 every year. So that is how much more expensive it can be if you choose to live in a home. Now mind it that Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas is relatively cheaper. If you choose to live in more expensive areas, say California, Chicago, New York, Boston, Seattle, those expenses can be much higher. And therefore, it is important to try and see where are the avenues where you can actually try and save some money. So before I discuss what things one can do to save on those expenses, let me just ask a simple question, and it is a very important question. If the cost is $28,000 more, which is a whopping, let's say, 23 lakh rupees per year in Indian rupees, is it really worth staying in a home like that? Just why is someone willing to spend so much more money to live in a home as compared to an apartment? Well, the thing is that even though it looks like one is spending $4,500 a month versus $2,200 a month, but mind that in that portion of 2,200, 1,900 is just going out and it will never come back to you. Whereas that $2,200 per month for mortgage and rent that I'm paying, I am gaining more ownership in that house. So the extra money that I'm spending in my home, I'm actually just putting that money in a different pocket. I'm actually not losing that much money. As I had earlier said, the rent only keeps increasing, and to such an extent that after a few years, rents will be very high. And not just that, to even afford a home like this can become near impossible for many people. So the market and the timing that you have when making such big purchases can be very important. It is quite important to start saving on anything that you can save on. So what do I do to start saving money? The first thing I do is that I decided to do the yard work myself. So initially I hired someone, but then I realized that, you know what, if I can take this expense out of $125 and bring it to about $25 a month, because I still need to buy those bags to dispose of the grass, I still need to buy other things, but I can save at least $100 a month if I do the yard work myself, and it is a great exercise. So to do that, I bought all the equipment myself and I started doing the yard work myself. The whole cost of equipment was worth 1 year of expenses if I paid someone else to do the job for me. From the second year onwards, all these expenses are saved for me. Then I started thinking, what else can I do to save more money? The first thing I did is that I canceled my gym membership. I used to pay around $80 a month for my gym membership. Now I built a gym of my own in my media room. I have a very nice gym. Let me just show you that. So this is my gym. This is my chair to do bench presses and exercises like that. This is to keep the barbell. Right now my barbell is here, and then I have all these weights. Okay, so, and I have this roller. Then this is the adjustable weight where I can add more and more weight to it. This for pulling exercises. And then I also have this push-up machine, and this is pull-up machine. And a big advantage of having a gym like this is that you can actually watch exercise videos on the screen over there and then follow the workouts. I'm not someone who believes in only weights. I think cardio is also really important. Therefore, I also have some cardio equipment. Why do you need cardio equipment at home? The point is that cardio can be done outside, right? For example, you can go for a walk or a run outside. But then what if the weather is not so nice? What if it is too hot or too cold or too rainy, or if it is snowing? In that case, I have this elliptical machine. But still, there is a limitation to workouts such as walking, running, or even elliptical machines. The thing is that you can only go so much distance when you're outside and you're going for a walk or a run. And on an elliptical machine, it is just one kind of exercise. Therefore, I also have this big hobby of going for bike rides. When you go for a bike ride, you can actually ride 5, 10, 15, 20 miles in a single go. Let me take you with me on a quick bike ride. Okay, we are back from the bike ride. But again, as I earlier mentioned, that when you go for a walk or a run outside, you cannot really do that if the weather conditions are not that good. Therefore, I have this elliptical machine. However, how about bike rides? See, bike rides are one of the best exercises. And if you cannot go for a bike ride outside, how about doing that inside? And therefore, I have this new inside home gym bike machine. It is called a YESOUL bike. So let us go ahead, unbox it, assemble it, and test it out. It's really cool that it shows you how fast you are going, how much distance you have covered, and then how many calories you are burning as you are exercising. And this knob right here actually controls your resistance. So if it is too loose for you, that means that the resistance is too low. And if you want to make it harder for yourself, if you want to burn more calories, you just turn it to the right and it becomes much harder. And for you to connect your phone or your tablet, it actually comes with HDMI and lightning connector. And then you also have USB-C, another HDMI cable with USB-C and USB connectors. So this is what you get, two different cables. And I'm using my iPhone, which uses this lightning connector. So let us try and connect the iPhone and see how it works. As you can see, my iPhone is being shown here and all this data about my exercise is being shown there. And you can also download the YESOUL app, through which you can actually select the kind of workout you want to do. I'm going on to this app and selecting this exercise. Let's see how it goes.
Hand position 1, right here at the corner of your handlebars. Hand position 2 will bring your hands out a little bit longer. Hand position 3, you'll come all the way out. Hands right here at the end of your handlebars.
So as you can see, I'm already sweating because I increased the resistance and I was following that instructor that I was able to connect through the app. And boy, it was quite challenging, which is fantastic. And the best thing about this bike is that it is very, very cheap. It is actually, if you can get any bike like this for less than $1,000, it is fantastic. Variations of the price of this bike can have a range between $500 to $1,000. Use the link given in the description and use the code, which is DC American Professor DAP 2024. DAP 2024 is your code. And this bike that costs $499, after you use my code, it will cost you only $399, which is a fantastic deal. So I hope you found this video informative. I hope it was helpful in some way. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind and God bless America.